Hey guys, Kid here of Burn One. I'm here to do a little deck profile. I was asked on my list for that I used for Fate at World, so I'm just gonna go over it, and I think I can provide some a little bit more in-depth discussion about how the deck works. I mean, if you're familiar at all with the Japanese side and the Japanese version of the deck, it's very similar. There's almost no reason to like tech other stuff in because your main game plan, if you're going to go this route, is just basically to have a really strong deck compression or like yeah, basically deck compression and having always like refreshing with 8 climaxes over every turn possible. So you have like a really high cancel rate and you're just trying to outlast your opponent. There might be some things in here. I don't think it would be like questionable of why I play it, but yeah, we'll just go through it here. So we'll start off level 0, obviously, here. Oh, and then if you guys care, link to this deck will be Encore deck list will be in the description below in the YouTube video, so you can, if you don't care to listen to this, you can just click that link down there. Anyway, we'll go into this. So first thing here is we play Entrusted Arm of Archer Shiro. So this card, I think, gets some flack from some players, but this card is amazingly powerful for what the deck wants to do. And what I mean by that is it does two things very well. One, makes it so that your level 0 game actually can kind of kill things and remove things off the board. At the same time, the other effect that it has is that if you have 2 or less cards in memory, you can send this to memory once it gets reversed. What makes this card so powerful is that the main deck game plan is to abuse the 2-1 free fresh as many times as possible, so you can have that amazing deck state all game once you hit level 2. This just exemplifies it a little bit more. It's like the cherry on top, basically. So generally, some matchups you want to get 3 of these into memory as soon as possible, but getting this into memory anytime you want is always good. Another thing really great about this card is that it does have Master Trait, which means our Clock Encore support can actually bring this back to still reverse things if need be, or if we want to go with the aggressive 3 attacker route at level 0. So what I mean about like this being like the cherry on top and like exemplifies the deck's game plan overall is that once you get 3 of these in memory, the more often you refresh, the more value you get out of this card being in memory. So there's a lot of matchups like standby matchups and other decks that want to like do big wall moves at level 2 with like 2 soul beaters and stuff like that. Against those decks, you really want to get 3 of these into memory as soon as possible. That's why I play it as 4. I think you can, if you want more flex room at all, you can cut this to 3 because generally you're only ever going to have 3 cards in memory anyway, and then like the last one is just kind of like floating around. So you can cut that for something else. Maybe if you want something for the mirror match, you play like the green bomb or something like that. But yeah, like I was saying, every time you refresh your deck using the 2-1 support, this card being in memory, it makes it a little bit easier to get to that 5 card or less deck state, and it makes it so you can like kind of spin stock to get out of the range of stock swap being very deadly to you. And on top of that, I mean, just 3 compression is just amazing to have for free, basically. There's almost no reason not to run this card as like minimum 3. I think if you run less than 3, you're probably making a mistake, since you can get 3 of these in memory. And just, every time I refresh, it just feels so good that there's 3 more cards taken out of your deck from memory, so you can have those good cancels, good brainstorms. It's just amazing all around. Like, this is like one of those things I think in the deck that is very powerful, but is not like talked about a lot. Really, it just works so well with the game plan of the deck. Next, we have Resolution to Fight Together Shiro. Obviously, Clock Encore support. Clock Encore is kind of busted when you have good cards to bring back, as well as it does let you be really aggressive with your hand early on, and you can make up for having a really crappy hand by just encoring things on the field, which is okay. A lot of times you're actually not looking to abuse this card that much. In cases you do want to abuse the Clock Encore is like when you want to do aggressive tri-field turn 1 for you, when you're going second, things like that. You're going to end up using it a lot. Sometimes you get stuck at certain levels, or sometimes you want to This is actually something that comes up not very often, but it's occasionally comes up. Like, you got to make sure to count your cards and see where you're going to be at in a deck state, because sometimes it's actually worth clock encoring something on your field, because it makes it easier for you to get to the 5 card or less deck state, and then that's just another card that's not going to be shuffled back into your deck as well, and you +1 on board for that turn, I guess. That's something to look out for and things like that. But usually this card is, this card is actually super garbage in the mirror too. So like, it's almost not needed in the mirror. But overall, the card like kind of lets you play an aggressive game plan if you want, because we are playing a gold bar. So if you get that like climax to hand every turn, this lets you just be a little bit unga boonga when you want to be, and just slam gold bar over and over again. And you can make up your hand size difference through clock encoring. I don't really recommend that gameplay, but I mean, it's really cool that this deck can switch game plans like that because this card exists. Something to know about this card too is that usually around level 2 is when this card's dead to you. You just move it up to the front and just like run it in. But it really depends on how the game's going for you. But very strong card. When it early in the game becomes incredibly useless late in the game, which kind of sucks. We play 4 obviously because we want this as soon as possible. It has master trait, and a lot of our stuff is master. Another thing, the reason we're playing this as a 4 of, same thing with the 4 of the stock bomb Shiro, is that we need a good amount of yellow because we are playing 4 colors here just for certain matchups. It kind of sucks, but that's what we have to deal with. Next, we're forced into playing this Brainstorm because it's super good. It's master trait. It's a salvager rest self thing. We're playing a gold bar, so its first effect, whenever you trigger a gold bar, you can ditch a card from your hand to get a card from your clock, is really good. So what's really powerful about this card, generally this effect is just overall very good. But what makes it even better here is that there are certain cards in your deck that you can't get off of like your Ilya, Kotsky and stuff. And this also makes it easier to get, like, for example, your 1/1 stock swap event into hand whenever it's in clock. And you can make really dumb plays when you know you're really compressing, like clock the 1/1 to try to get a climax, then trigger a climax, get the 1/1 back type of things. That's kind of like a really risky play, but it's a play that's open there. Yeah, just solid Brainstorm. What can you say? There's almost nothing else worth running in this slot for as far as a Brainstorm goes. And of course it has its master trait, like I said, which is really good. So you can push this up in the front row, attack with it, then clock encore and bring it back. You do have to watch out though, if people are playing anti-runners, if you push this up and they put an anti-runner in front of this, you just literally want to kill yourself that moment, because you just lost your Brainstorm. And then it takes you have to like waste extra resources to get a Brainstorm back. I play a 1 of this Ruthless King of Knights Saber Altar. So generally the deck, we play 4 colors, but the big thing to look at here is that literally our only red is the 2/1 Heroic Rin and Archer. And then I splashed in this one because one, it helps me with a little bit of red, so I can do little cheeky plays where I level this up for red and then have access to up to 4 deck free freshers at level 2. Instead of having 3, so it makes it a little bit easier on me. Another thing too is that it's 3/5 at level 0, so I can beat things like level 1 beaters that I can't kill with the bomb as well. It doesn't come up that often, but it's something to think about. And then the biggest thing here, it can drop search for anything in my deck. So if I need, for example, if I need a rider, or if I need the saber, or like my caster, well, caster can get off of the Akatsuki Ilya, but this generally lets you grab things that you sometimes don't have access to, which is kind of cool. This card is like hit or miss on how good it is depending on each matchup, but it's something worth like experimenting with a little bit. This could be cut for something else if you're fine with like the 4 of red there, which is I think completely reasonable. But I kind of liked it as a little tech card just in case in those scenarios where I need to find like the Saber level 3 or another Rider level 3 to get through the game. Finally, this is another card here, the Ilya. It's basically Kotsky Ilya, so Silver Thread Alchemy, Ilya, however you say that. So this is one of the biggest engine cards of the deck. This is something that if you trigger early on, you kind of don't want it stuck in your stock. So it's just an Akatsuki, so on play, discard a card, look at the top 4, add a master trait character to your hand. Most cards in this deck are master trait. The only ones that aren't are obviously Saber Altar, the event, Saber level 3 along with Rider level 3. Everything else has master trait, so you have access to a lot of things with this. The reason this is being the engine of the deck is once you hit level 2, your game plan generally is to free fresh as often as you can, with the using the Ilya to like mill your deck out and manipulate your deck into a state of being 5 or less cards, so you can do the free fresh, get that nice crisp 8 climax deck that's like super compressed. It's just really, really good. Usually at level 2, you don't really care about winning board anyway, so you're just like crashing your board and just opening up lanes so people can swing big if they make that mistake, and you get free cancels basically. Very, very, very powerful card. This card also is really good. It cantrips into itself because this is also master trait, which is like spooky. So you can do dumb plays like this is a play that came up once, which was like Ilya into Ilya into Ilya into getting the Shiro, and then playing the Shiro, then attacking 3 times with Ilya, and then these can be clock encore because it's master trait. So it's like spooky aggressive plays you can make like that are really, really cool. But yeah, this card is way too good for this deck. Like, if English gets a ban list, I am almost certain something like this will be on it. Like, maybe choice between Ilya and, like, the Free Fresh. But we'll see how this deck rolls out. So, yeah, that's basically the level 1 game. We have, what, 17 level... Or, sorry, level 0 game. 17 level 0s. It's super standard. If you, like, follow the Japanese metagame at all, this is almost like... This is, like, 100% what they play at 0. Some decks don't run this. Some decks play other tech cards instead of this here. But this is the card I chose for my, like, little tech room. Level 1, this is part of the reason why Clock Encore is kind of spooky with this deck. So, that's another thing to talk about too, that reason why we play 8 Shiro level 0s. So we have this Sakura, Irreplaceable Existence Sakura. It gains 1500 extra power as long as you have a Shiro on the board. Some cases you end up without this in the back row or early on or something like that. So you end up just playing one of these in the back row until you find your Clock Encore. Those are some weird awkward game states, but it does happen occasionally, so having 8 Shiro targets is pretty good. Next thing that's really great about this is the climax combos with one of the gold bars. It's when the battle opponent of this gets reversed, you can search your deck for Master Servant trait characters, so it gets you everything you need because you only deal with Master Servant traits. But what's so spooky about this card is that you trigger gold bar into your hand for it, and then it gets killed on your defending turn. If you know you have reverse targets, you can Clock Encore with the Shiro level 0 support, and then just combo off again. That's like really spooky and really annoying when that, or annoying for your opponent when that happens. You love it when it happens to you, especially when you get stuck at level 1, which is like ideally what you want to happen anyway. So yeah, the only downside of this card, it's 6,500 power, so sometimes you just can't beat things if your opponent's playing like a really big wall deck. So this deck has trouble with wall decks, especially if they play like 1/1s. If they don't play 1/1s, the next card takes care of everything for you. So Distortion of Daily Life Sakura is a clock bomb. So it's a cost 0 clock bomb. So it kills and it 1/0/0/0s, everything like that. So this gets rid of things on the board. So in the mirror match, this card is really, really busted because, like I said, in the mirror match, you generally don't need this Shiro support because your opponent shouldn't be letting you Clock Encore things, basically, with the Clock Bomb. So it makes it so they can't Encore certain things. But the next effect is you're playing 8 gold bars, so obviously you need good ditch out. This is the best ditch out you have. On play, you can ditch a climax from your hand to salvage a Master or Servant trait character, so anything in your waiting room becomes... target to be put in your hand whenever you have a climax. Makes some hand sculpting a little awkward when you like, should I hold this extra gold bar just in case I need it or what? You can have some weird tricky plays like that, but it doesn't really matter. Of course, Ilya is also a great ditch out, but this is probably the best ditch out because you get exactly what you want from it, on top of doing plays of like getting Ilya back to your hand to mill your deck down, things like that. It's just solid ditch out, solid level 1 beater. You can't beat that. Next, we have the 1/1 Noble Phantasm Unleashed. This is an event, and the only awkward part about this card is you need 3 green characters on the board. Sometimes that can be like a little awkward to do, but it's generally fairly easy to get off. So what makes this card so spooky is that it's at level 1. One of the plays I did, if you guys watched the video, is like my opponent had up to 3 climaxes left in their 6-card deck. They had 6 stock. I just stock swapped them while I was at level 1, and then just proceeded to attack into their new deck. So this card is just really, really good. It like anyone that's like not prepared to deal with stock swap just loses to it, and it's just like a really good threat to always have like in a discussion. Level 2, obviously 4 of Heroic Rin and Archer. This is if you have 5 or less cards in your waiting or in your deck, you can when you play this, you can refresh for free and then draw a card instead of taking damage, which is really, really busted. A lot of games, like I said, your main game plan is to just loop this over and over and over again until your opponent dies. The main game plan of the deck is just to have a really good, strong deck state all game at level 2, and then your opponent's just like forced to always swing into like this deck that has like 8 climaxes and it's like 1 in 3 all the time. It's really, really awkward. It doesn't cost a lot of stock to like get to the deck state where you can use this. You don't really lose a lot of hands. Sometimes you overplay cards and you don't care because you're still in the turn with like 5 to 6 cards in hand. It's just so good. Yeah, what can I say? This is like one of the staple parts of like how the deck wants to play. Next, I played this 2/1 Fearless Smile Ilya. So there's like a couple things you can play at level 2. One of them is a rider that gets really big when other cards attack, and then like whenever it reverses a level 2 or higher character, it can blind stock one. So we did a lot of discussion with I had a lot of discussion with Nico and Carmen a little bit about what I want to play in this slot, and we ended up deciding on the bottom decker Ilya here. So when this gets reversed to the battle opponent's higher than their opponent's level, you can bottom deck it. Reason being is like the only things we're kind of afraid of is like giving like Sunshine extra attacks, because when they start getting their Yo out, that's when they start getting extra attacks and things like that. It's kind of like we want to avoid that. Like if maybe they get their 1 extra attack and then we just remove it from the game. This also gets rid of like any early plays that we are actually worried about. Usually if our opponent early plays, we're fine with that because we actually want to crash our board, let them swing in big for 3/3/3, so we can have really huge opportunities to cancel. So yeah, this was the choice here. This is a super flex spot. You might not even need it. Maybe if you don't like it, you just play like the 1/0 anti-early play counter, which I think is like pretty mediocre for the deck. It's like okay because you have clock encore, but I don't like putting myself in states where I'm forced to have like a really bad hand because I discarded 3 cards from my hand and I have to clock encore things on my board over and over again. Because like I said, the deck's idea is that it just wants to always have a really good deck state so it can cancel consistently. Finally, we go into level 3 here. So this is I have a little bit difference here than other people. I'm not sure if anyone else like really does this. So first we play the Saber level 3 because we're afraid of getting walled out either by other riders or Buta. So this bounces it, as well as like this gives extra soul to all our characters. So it's another out as well to like our opponent playing multiple riders. Usually in the mirror match, this card is godlike and you just need to hold on to it all game. Next we play 2 Brilliant Smile Sakura. This card is our level support. It hardly ever comes out, usually if you're like in a really good winning deck state. Otherwise, this card on play you can salvage 1 master or servant trait character. So it's one of the ways like you hold one rider, hold a Sakura, you play the Sakura to grab another rider from the waiting room, because like I said, it's one of the cards that doesn't have master trait. This also like beefs up your rider so it can kill most things after it combos. Also, it has a last effect, which is you can tap this and then choose either a master or servant trait character in your waiting room and put it to stock. So it's basically an alpaca. So this lets you do cool things of like when you have this out, say you have no stock after playing all your level 3s with a caster on board, you just tap this to get 1 stock, and then your casters are ready to restand because caster costs 4 and you must discard 2 cards from your hand. And then like in longer games go, like you can just build resources when you don't have to spend it that often, and especially in matchups where your opponent has no way to stock swap you or anything like that. It's a very powerful card in those cases. You don't always play this, but it's definitely a very strong utility tool to consider at level 3, especially when you're like digging for certain pieces like the rider, or you need another caster or something in your waiting room, or like Saber as well. It's just another very strong utility card to have in the deck. And of course, it's Master Trait character 2 with 2 soul, so like you can clock on court if need be at level 3. Next, this is kind of like, I want to say this is the quote-unquote top end of the deck. I don't really think that's true. I feel like a lot of people are going to be teched against this anyway, so it's not as strong as you think it is unless you play play at least 2 on the board. Usually your game plan is to play 2. If you play 2 of this and also the Sakura level 3 support, I believe you always go even on stock usage if you just climax combo back to back. Yeah, that sounds right. Yeah, because 4. Yeah, so you can just always go even on stock. The only thing you lose out on is your hand gets smaller over like doing quantity, like a lot of these. So if you play 2 riders combo twice and stock once with this, you will always go ±0, which is really strong. If you can able to loop that multiple turns in a row, it makes rider very, very strong. Certain decks that just feel really bad against this is like AOT. So like this is the type of card you play against AOT and just kind of pray that they don't trigger wind trigger. Sometimes that's impossible to deal with, but yeah. Card is pretty powerful, but this card forces your opponent to side attack whenever you climax combo off. It also makes it so the cards facing this card lose 3,000 power. So if they put something weak there, it just immediately dies. And so yeah, this basically has a -3 soul in front of this card, and then it's guaranteed to live when you combo too, so you don't have to worry about replacing it because your opponent can't front attack it. Yeah, and like I said, heals on play 2 goes with the game plan of like outlasting your opponent. This entire deck is just built around outlasting. Next, actually we'll skip caster. We'll go to this first. So this mysterious girl Ilya. So this is an early play that we don't play the early play condition because the early play condition sucks. But what's really great about this card is that you can do Brainstorm, Ilya Healer, Free Fresh for only 3 stock every turn once you hit level 3. So you can set up really good deck states and get 1 heal off every single turn. So if your opponent hits you for 3 and 3 sticks, you can then brainstorm, hit like a climax, salvage Ilya, play Ilya, ditch a card, heal the stock that you heal 1. So it's really powerful. It's 11k, which is like decently powerful. Behind the support, it's 12.5, which is like okay power. Generally, you just want this to die every turn anyway. It's a good 2 soul beater, but you usually salvage it off something else just to loop heals, which is pretty nice. It's one of the key points of the deck of being able to like outlast your opponent by constantly looping heals off of Ilya, which is like pretty cool. The final thing here is Heroic Spirit Caster. So not a lot of people play this card. I know some JP lists play it as a 1-of. I think most JP lists towards the end played this as a 1-of. But I ended up playing it as a 2-of because I just felt like it was way more stronger in English at the time. I don't know if I would still play it as a 2-of, but I really like this card a lot. And when this card like gets stuck in stock or somewhere and you can't get it out, it feels really bad that you can't find it. So I bumped it up to 2 because I tested the deck a lot with only 1. And just last minute I did a little bit more discussion with like Harmon and Nico and stuff, and we just pushed it up to 2. Before we had 3 Ilyas, we cut an Ilya because finally, like after so much testing, realized 3 Ilyas is way too many Ilyas. 2 is like the sweet spot because you only ever really play 1, sometimes 2 Ilyas. But caster felt really, really important because say you're trying to outlast your opponent. So you push your opponent usually pretty hard, especially in the aggressive games. Like you can be not behind. They'll be like closer to dying. So like they'll be at 3-3 or something like that. And even in ending games, they'll be at 3-3. But what this caster does for you is on play top check X, so you're basically top checking 5. So it does things like find you a climax to push damage, or find you a climax to combo with level 3, find you your 1/1 event if you don't already have it in your hand to go off. It just finds you events and climaxes and others like small pieces easily, on top of being a threatening way to finish the game. So you can do weird setups like double rider caster, Sakura support, and like go off like that, and it's like feels really, really good because you usually go into level 3 if your game has been fairly like a normal paced game. You go into level 3 usually with a good amount of stock, like usually around 14, maybe 12, around that area. So you can do really aggressive like weird plays like that. But yeah, just the fact that you're able to find like 1/1 events and climaxes off of this is like one of the best parts about this card. Also, it's a climax list finisher because all you got to do is reverse a battle opponent. Most decks in English, you can find something to reverse with this card. The only one that you might have trouble with will be, of course, the boogeyman of Attack on Titan. And then also against Konosuba, if you're not careful, they could 2-3 foreclosure event you, and then you won't be able to use this effect. But overall, like, and against every other deck, and when your opponent's like wasted stock and can't use certain effects, this has been like a really good choice card, especially like when you get a stock swap off of this and then like restand, it feels so good. So yeah, you just play 2, and like I said, it's a pay 4, discard 2 when the battle opponent's reversed to restand it. So like the cost sounds alike a lot, but it actually isn't that bad at all once you get used to playing the deck. Like I said, you can generally play 3 level 3s and or play out all your stock, and if you have no stock with a caster on board, you can stock charge with this Brilliant Smile Sakura, and then you'll be able to light your caster, which is really cool. I just really like that it has that extra oomph at the end instead of like relying on just canceling and like swinging in for like 2s and 3s and hoping it sticks against your opponent, whereas like a caster gives you an extra attack occasionally, which is, it feels really good, especially when you're both at level 3 and you're like just trying to fight to close out games. And then, of course, we have 8 gold bar, 4 of the level 1 combo, 4 of the level 3 combo, obviously. That's it for the deck. I think I basically covered everything. If you guys know of any other tricks or things like that, you can just go ahead and leave it in the comment below. But this is what I went in with Worlds. Ended 3-3, which was really disappointing. I choked really bad later in the day after I started getting tilted, which really sucked because I'm pretty sure I had somewhat of a chance to make top 8 still after my 2 losses, but it would be really tough. It depend on my tiebreakers. I probably would have like bubbled out like in 9th or 10th place if I did win my last game. But yeah, any questions about the deck, just go ahead and leave it in the comments below. Like I said, I'll have the deck list linked in the information section below, so just check that out if you want to see the Encore deck list. Other than that, guys, see you guys in the next video. Later. Before you go, make sure to like and subscribe to our channel if you do enjoy our content, as it does help us grow, and check out some of these social media links below.